My name is Gianni Russo, a.k.a. Carlo, the infamous son-in-law from The Godfather. I'm now known as the Hollywood Godfather, and this is my story.
Before all of the wins in my portfolio, I was a little boy diagnosed with polio. Experimenting with cures, I tried every one. Felt everything in my right, but my left was numb. Walking with a limp, like will I ever run? Once again, or is this it? Am I forever done? Living in the hospital was never fun. Some people were cool, but not everyone. You never know who you're lying in a room with. So I broke a broomstick in half and let it groove with the concrete in the bathroom floor. It had a new tip, stashed it behind the toilet in case I ever had to use it. Cause one day Dolores had a chat with me. Said she got word someone was coming after me. My heart started beating rapidly. I looked in front of me and back of me. Who thinks they're whacking me?
Speak softly loud and hold me warm against your heart. I hear your words, the tender trembling.
Welcome everybody. Another episode of Hollywood Godfather podcast. And tonight we have an amazing guest. I can actually say he's my friend. I've spent many years in conversations and dinners talking to him. He's put me in his book. He's written numerous magazine articles, but we'll get into all of that. First, I want to welcome Pat Picciarelli, my co-writer and host.
Hi, everybody.
And my friend. And then our Millennial,
there you go.
Millennial, whatever. That's what he's corrected me for 3 years now, Mark, on this. Millennial, Megan Horan.
Hello, how are we doing tonight, guys?
Oh, great.
Very well.
Well, I want to have the pleasure. Sometimes Pat introduces, sometimes Megan, but this guy, I can't say enough about him. I met him years ago, and then we started talking, and we collaborated on a couple of things, and not that he needed me, but I had some information that he didn't have. He didn't know where Bernie Madoff ate on Sunday nights and stuff like that. So with that said, and nothing else further ado, Mr. Mark Seal, with a great book, Take the Gun. No, take the cannolis, leave the gun, or leave the gun.
No, leave the gun, take the cannoli.
I should know that. I should know that by heart.
Yeah, you should. Shame on you.
I know. Mark, I apologize to you.
No worries. Thank you, Gianni. Always great to speak with you.
Well, let's get into it. I mean, Megan has a bunch of questions that she'd like to lead off with. I know Pat's going to jump in like we always do, but
absolutely, I can start it off.
Please.
Mark, for those of our audience who may not be familiar with you and your work, would you just give us a little introduction, tell us a bit about yourself?
Yes, so I am a special correspondent with Vanity Fair magazine, and I'm also the author of numerous nonfiction books. And so this book was just out 3 weeks ago today on Tuesday the 19th, and so far so good. And it's great to be here, and so happy to answer your questions.
No, we're happy you're here. I mean, even the book, I'm in the book with you for 50 years living it.
Yeah.
And I think it's going to clear up to a lot of the myths about me because of you. I didn't know you were going to expose Sidney Korshak and Kirk Kerkorian and all of that, but that was the thread that held it all together for Bobby Evans and everybody else and the powers that be. And actually, in the book, you pointed out that they went to Sidney Korshak to secure Pacino from the gang that couldn't shoot straight, that was supposed to shoot at Columbia.
Yes, exactly. Well, Robert Evans had mentioned some of that in his book, The Kid Stays in the Picture, of course. And but yeah, I interviewed Evans in his home before he passed away. I interviewed him for the Godfather story in Vanity Fair in 2008, as I did Gianni as well, of course. Right. And so he elaborated on that story even more, in his home, and told me about how he called his friend, and how and what happened from that point on. And nobody knew who Pacino was, of course, at that point. He hadn't been in a movie. He had shot The Panic in Needle Park, but it hadn't come out. So he was a Broadway actor, sometimes off Broadway, and nobody wanted him, of course, except Francis Coppola.
Well, that's why I find really enlightening for our audience is the fact that, like so many people are negative on my story that they read in our book, and it's funny because I had so many people in the background like Korshak and like different and Bobby Evans, because when you read your book in the 11th hour, maybe even the 12th hour, Francis got everybody he wanted in the picture.
Exactly. Yeah, that's the great thing. I mean, he envisioned
except me. That's the thing.
You're right. Yeah, but he envisioned the cast early on and had them all come up to San Francisco. His wife, cut their hair. They did these homemade screen tests, and he knew who he wanted, which is so amazing. He wanted Pacino, he wanted Khan, he wanted Diane Keaton, and he wanted Robert Duvall. And the studio obviously wanted some other people for all the roles. And of course, he also wanted Brando. Right. And nobody wanted Brando because he was considered washed up at 47, temperamental, and kind of a has-been. And look what happened because
I know,
Coppola
it's amazing for everybody.
Him.
Especially
Would you want
me.
to discuss, I'd like to hear a little bit more about the Robert Evans, and I think the people who are our listeners would like to hear something about him too. He was basically the spoiler in this project. At least that's the way I got it.
Yeah, well, Evans was the head of production, obviously, it's at Paramount, and he wanted to make magic. And Charlie Bluedorn had hired him to turn the studio around. The studio was in trouble. They made Love Story, which was a reprieve, but it wasn't a rescue. And so they gambled on The Godfather. They didn't think it was going to be a hit at all. It was supposed to be a low budget movie done in contemporary times in a town like St. Louis or Kansas City. And nobody had big expectations for it. And Evans really believed in it. At first, he was a little questioned it too, because he had made The Brotherhood the Brotherhood had been made at Paramount, and it flopped even despite pretty good reviews. So, there was a problem with the movie in the beginning because nobody thought it was going to work.
He didn't like the score either, did he?
Oh no, he didn't want the score. He felt that the Nina Rota music was too dark, and he needed something like a Henry Mancini theme to lift the movie up from all of this darkness and death. And Coppola fought for that too and won. And look, that's one of the most iconic scores of all time.
Yeah, amazing.
Oh my God, yeah.
What I see in that movie, I'm a huge fan. When my agent and also Gianni's agent approached me, his name is Frank Wyman, about 4 years ago, would I like to do a book? He assigned me things occasionally over the years. And I said, sure, with two. He said, Gianni Russo, he played Carlo in The Godfather. I thought, my dreams come true. My favorite movie of all time. I'm going to work with one of the stars of the movie. I think this was great. I've seen that movie, and I'm not exaggerating, at least 100 times. And you get to a point where, of course, you know everything, or you think you do. And I like to look for things that I've never seen before, and I like to pick them out. It's a game I play. This last time, maybe viewing 101, when Michael goes to Vegas to see Fredo, and they're getting out of the elevator before they get in the room. He's got all his baggage with him. One of the bellhops is John Larroquette.
Wow, I didn't realize that. That's amazing.
That had to be his. He didn't have a speaking part. Pacino asked him a question, and he just nodded toward the door, that type of thing. So that's something else I learned about this movie. Who knows how many extras got started in here in that picture?
Yes, so many. And look at all the extras. I mean, at the wedding scene of Gianni's character, and Connie, there were like 750 extras, right?
That was crazy.
And of course, Gianni was in the background doing more than acting, I guess, right, Gianni?
I was selling soda. I was doing it all. It's funny that one of the cast members that we met later on, and we've been talking to him. We had him on the show, Nick Vallelonga, who won the Oscar 2 years ago for Green Book. He
Wow.
said, I met you years ago, my father. I said, where? He said, I was 8 years old. I was one of the guests at your wedding because Coppola said, any of you guys have any kids, bring them to the wedding and dress them like they're coming to a wedding. So that's how long I met him. I couldn't believe it. There was
That's amazing.
so many
That's so
careers
amazing.
that came out of that movie or was
Yeah, and that
influenced by
wedding,
it.
and that wedding scene was so great. It just, I think that it opened up everything. Like it was like a Mario Puzo story for one of the magazines he used to write for, where you introduce all the main characters in the very start, and then you're compelled to follow them through everything that happens from that point forward, which is what that wedding did.
Right. But I mean, the behind the scenes stuff, though. I mean, because I knew, it's so funny because you and I have had this conversation with some of the articles. Most people don't know Charlie Blue Dome was well connected to some Italian friends of ours, and he didn't want the movie. At first, they told him, "Don't make that movie." He said, "What are you talking about? I don't own it. Studio owns it, and I own the studio." And Bobby and
Exactly.
everybody wants to make it, but
Yep.
it was so crazy. When the smoke cleared, there was about 6 people that I was very close to behind the scenes. That there was no way that Johnny Russo was not going to be in this movie, and nobody's talking about it, and
Right.
you didn't talk about it, which I think is interesting.
Yeah, because I thought you covered that pretty well in your book.
Well, I know.
And yeah, for sure. But anyway, yeah, the casting was amazing, that nobody, they, after Coppola envisioned the cast, then they went into this intensive screen testing mode where all of these actors flew to New York and were screen tested day and night. I think went on for several days, and it cost the studio like 400,000 or something like
and,
that.
and Pacino, they were wearing him out.
Yeah, yeah, he kept coming back and forth. He said, I can't. They kept calling him back, and he didn't think he was going to get the part. So it was very frustrating. He had said on his part
Right.
to keep being called back for a part that he didn't think he would get.
Well, they told him basically they don't want him. It was in the trade magazines. They don't know why
Yeah.
they kept bringing him back, but Francis kept bringing him back.
Exactly.
Amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. But the cast that he saw in the beginning was the perfect cast, and of course Gianni as Carlo. Who else could have played that like that? That was just it was amazing.
Well, we're going to find out there. I'm watching. Nobody knows I'm getting the stills and everything from The Offer,
Oh,
and the kid who's playing me, Brandon Wilson, is I have the pictures of him getting the beating from James Caan in that movie, which is interesting now, 50 years later, somebody's playing me in that same role. It's like so bizarre as me, who not even in the business. Now there's a character called Gianni Russo in a movie.
Let's hope he doesn't get. Let's hope he doesn't get his ribs broken.
No, they didn't. I mean, but I think they coordinated a lot different. And they're not working with Jimmy Caan, who was a hothead to begin with.
Yeah.
I don't even know
right.
I don't know who's playing Jimmy Caan actually. But
I don't know. Well, Mark, if I could ask you this.
Sure.
So you said you've written about The Godfather before,
Mhm.
but could you tell us what inspired you to write this book and what you felt it would offer that would be different than other books written about the making of The Godfather?
Yeah, so I felt that because I had done all of these original interviews in 2008 with some of the people who are now dearly departed, Robert Evans, Carmen Caridi, I interviewed Al Martino,
Abe Vigoda,
Vigoda, I
John
interviewed at his
Casal.
apartment in New York. Some of the cast, the man who cast the extras, I interviewed him. Anyway, I had all these interviews, and the 50th anniversary was coming up. And I've just always been obsessed with this movie. And I just felt like I wanted to do it. I didn't know if I would uncover, come up with new things, or I didn't know where it would lead me in the beginning. I just knew I wanted to take that trip, and to go down the rabbit hole and see what I could find. And it was just fun for me because I think it's the greatest movie of all time. And I think the behind the scenes story, as Evans wrote, is as fiery as anything that happened. The War of the Corleones, the war of the movie was as wild as the War of the Corleones on the screen. And so I just wanted to get into all of that. And I thought it would be, great fun and interesting, hopefully inspiring. I wanted to tell the story also of Mario Puzo. I wanted to tell the stories of all these amazing characters that came together, under all this pressure. And it was like, the coal that's, pressurized into the diamond. I felt like that's what it was. And so I really wanted to do that. And that's the reason. And with the 50th anniversary coming up, I got my chance.
Well, there's one fact that you came out with that really nobody knows. And you and I wanted to not tell you before we were on the air tonight. I had a club, as you read my book, and Pat wrote it, in the Tropicana Hotel. So we were very much aware of Mario Puzo and his gambling debts. Mm-hmm. And he was coming out doing research, trying to find out about the mob. And then suspiciously, which is really, I had to almost fall on the floor. I don't know how you found out that his $13,000 marker was picked up by some people.
Yeah, so that part about him at the Sands, I thought that was really interesting.
Well, guess who picked it up?
I didn't know who.
Frank Costello.
Oh my gosh, that I didn't know.
No, because Costello, I said that'll secure me my part for sure.
Wow, that's amazing.
Because to them it don't mean nothing. It's a marker. It's just ripping up a marker.
Club?
Oh my God, yeah. Oh, Mario stayed at my house. I was good friends with Gianni and Agnelli, and after we did that, he wrote Superman. I mean, not wrote Superman. Mario wrote Superman, and Marlon Brando played his father. That's right. So Agnelli says to me, "They're coming to Cannes." He said, "Have them stay with us at the house." I said, "Well, I don't know. I could just do that. He may want a few dollars." He said, "I don't care what he wants. I want him at my house." So Mario and Brando stayed with us for the premiere of Superman.
Wow.
And it's like another whole revelation of meeting that on that level. And Mario and Brando, well, I already had a 10,000 square foot house next to Brando. So he didn't know where my money came from. He didn't know what I was doing. He didn't care as long as he could have part of it.
That's great.
But you revealed that. But I was wondering if somebody told you that Costello picked it up. But you didn't say it. No. How'd you find out about that piece?
I just interviewed people that knew about it. I quote some people in the book that had been there when he came into the Sands.
Yeah.
And was gambling, was playing roulette at the Sands.
Yeah. Well, he knew the Sands where everybody hung out. That was the mob hangout, including Sinatra and Mickey, Carl Cohen, Mickey Cohen, all those guys. So.
But what a story! He's kind of like the hero of the whole story. I mean, he, was so kind of like down and counted out, and he had sold 2 novels. First were $3,500 advance. Right. The second was $3,000 advance. And I love the story that he told. I think it was to Time Magazine that he was had a severe gallbladder attack. He calls a taxi to take him to the VA hospital. And once he gets to the VA hospital in New York, he opens the door and the pain struck and he falls out of the taxi and he lands in the gutter. And he looks up at the night sky, face up, and he says, "Here I am, a published author, and I'm dying like a dog." That's when I decided I'm going to be rich and famous. I thought that was the greatest line.
That was.
And he, did. And that's what he did. And he starts writing The Godfather out of, the Senate hearings and the Valachi hearings, and created this world, this family, the family that's where the fiction was more startling and more real and more epic than fact. And, you just can't discount all that Mario Puzo did.
No.
He never actually met a gangster.
That's what he said.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's what he said. He never met a genuine gangster.
He met a lot of pit bosses who let him believe they were, and then he found out they weren't.
Yeah, but he had such an imagination. I was able to go back and read some of his magazine stories. He was a pulp fiction writer. He worked in New York at a company that produced pulp fiction magazines, and he was able to create these stories that were just wild and they seemed like they were fact, but they were total fiction. War stories, crime stories, all of this. This is what taught him to be a writer.
5 cents a word.
That's right, exactly.
Take
That
it
was
to the
his
bank.
training ground.
I developed a whole new appreciation for cinematography by reading your book. I mean, the average person sees a movie, they enjoy it, but they don't fully understand why they enjoy it. I love the old film noir movies from the 40s, some from the 30s, and the way you explained it, the actors walk into the picture. The camera doesn't follow them. And when I rewatched The Godfather, most of the movie was like that. The actors were not followed with cameras. They walked into them. They drove into them. That was all of Francis Ford Coppola's idea, I would think, right?
Well, his and the director of cinematography, Gordon Willis,
He's the best.
known as the Prince of Darkness, because
Right.
he liked to paint with light and darkness, and they call it the tableau form of where you're right, the camera is static. It's like a painting where the action comes into the painting and it looks like a series of paintings, and that's what made the great art. That's what made The Godfather such a great, beautiful film to watch. But in the beginning, Evans and Peter Bart, would be in the screening room in Los Angeles, and they go, "What is this? Why is it so dark? Are we wearing sunglasses?"
No.
So in the beginning, nobody thought it was great. Everybody thought it was problematic because it was too dark. And that opening scene where the Undertaker's face comes out of the darkness, and you see Brando with that cat in his lap. Well, that cat was just in the Filmway studios eating the rats. It was like a vagabond cat that Brando picked up, and the cat was purring into his microphone, and they said, "We can't hear a word Brando says, plus he's mumbling all the time." So, in the beginning, it was just like it seemed like it was going to be a disaster.
No, I was privy to some of those phone calls. Well, my relationship with Betty McCart was
Yes.
my conduit, and for
She
our
told
audience.
me.
What's that?
She told me I was able to interview Betty, who's also dearly departed. She was so great. She loved Gianni. I mean, she told me that Gianni, I guess you lived at her house or something.
Well, maybe you never found out whose house that was, but it was Clint Eastwood's house.
Ah,
And Sergio Leone hired him to do 3 westerns right after Rawhide. So her husband, her son and daughter, and I moved in. Because I wanted to be an actor. Nobody knew who I was. So I was hiding out, going to Vegas, going back and staying with her. But and for our audience who don't know, she was Al Ruddy's assistant.
yes, she was so great.
So she was hands on. She told me everything was going on all the time.
Well, my favorite Gianni Russo story is to lose, I think, was it 30 pounds or 80 pounds you lost?
30 pounds.
He was on a popcorn and almond and white Chablis diet.
That was it.
He's still on it.
No, I went to red one now.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, there's one scene where the almond, he was drinking it out of a huge half-gallon jug, right?
Yeah.
Because there's one scene in the cemetery at Don Corleone's cemetery where Francis got upset and actually, according to the Ira Zuckerman, who had wrote a diary about the filming, grabbed the almond and threw it down the street. And I guess that was Gianni Russo's almond jug.
Well, I really had very few lines. My only acting in that movie was the closing scene with Michael. All the rest were one-liners. And if I couldn't remember that, I've never had a job where I had to be 8, 10, 11, 12 hours somewhere. So I used to get drunk and go there. What do I care? I was having a party. I really didn't care if the movie made it at all. I didn't even know it was going to get out because the rumor constantly was they're going to close it down.
Yeah.
And that's all. And Francis every day thought he was going to get a pink slip.
Exactly. Yeah. He just, persevered through this thing and had this vision. You just see it. if you look at his Godfather notebook, which is what he did was he took the pages of Puzo's novel, which is so great because he didn't want to steer away from the novel. He knew the novel had magic in it once he decided that what he thought. At first, he thought the novel was too sensationalistic. He said, "What is this? The carpetbaggers," you know? And then he found the key, and the key was family, that the gangsters weren't just criminals, they were family men. And he said he saw the film as the story of a king and his three sons. And that's what he produced and directed. And he took Puzo's book to Cafe Trieste in San Francisco every morning, and he ripped the pages out and he put them in a notebook. And on the margins of that notebook, he wrote, you know, the different scene directions and what he wanted to do and his hopes and dreams, and all that came to fruition. And that was the genius of Francis Coppola and this film.
No, I mean, as we talk about it now, 50 years later, you would never think, after reading your book, I'm sure so many people are going to be amazed at how we have this work of art after all this chaotic beginning and everybody pushing and pulling, and it was insane.
Yeah, because they had the stripe on the set, the problems with the real mob, the troubles with you know, the people that, you know, Francis's vision against and Evans's vision, and all of these competing things that were going on behind the scenes. And this miracle happened, and you can see that's what's on the screen. I mean,
it truly was.
Yeah, it was a miracle. And as Evan said, he wanted to touch magic, and in this case, he really did.
Yeah, I mean, I went to see Evans an awful lot, and I was laughing when you said, I can only imagine you, knowing you're a married man, the first time you met Evans and said, "Come to my bed with me, we'll talk."
Exactly. Well, yeah, that was wild. So I go to Evans's house, you know, this beautiful house near the Beverly Hills Hotel.
Up on the hill. Yep.
Yeah, and they let me, you know, his butler, Alan, great man, lets me in. And on the dining room table were all the clippings and the photographs and the mementos of the filming. And Evans walks in, and he really knows how to make an entrance. His hair was slicked back, his face was
the
tan.
silk robes and forget about it.
Yeah. Well, he didn't have he was like dressed really well, and rose-colored glasses. And what happened was he said, "Let's go to bed." And I went, "What?" And he goes, his screening room had burned down recently, so he and his friends watched his movies in bed.
Do you know who burnt his screening room down by accident?
I'm not sure.
Brett Ratner.
I didn't know.
Brett Ratner's house was being remodeled. He let him stay there, and somehow Brett, I don't know what he was doing, but that's another whole story. And Brett, I mean, he was Brett's mentor. And for our audience who don't know who Brett is, he's done some great movies. Rush Hour 1, Rush Hour 2. I mean,
He was a
great director. But he inspired him.
So we watched parts of The Godfather, and while we were watching, he told me the story of his, you know, of his participation, his guidance, what he thought, the reaction after he saw it, the premiere. I mean, the premiere was something in itself. That was amazing.
Oh my God.
Yeah, that was unbelievable. And then the aftermath with the lines around the block, you know, you just couldn't invent it. You couldn't get a ticket. It was like going.
They screened it 24/7.
Yeah, they screened it like that long.
It's nuts.
You couldn't even get like a gap between showings. It was screened continuously.
So, Mark, there's something I read in your book that I want to bring up and actually see if it's something Gianni knew about. I'm curious. So, Gianni's told us before that Frank Sinatra, who obviously didn't want the movie done because he didn't like the portrayal of the character Johnny Fontane, he personally asked Gianni not to do the film. So that being said, you wrote that after Coppola smoothed things over with Sinatra and would minimize the Fontane character, Sinatra told Coppola, "I'd like to play the Godfather." And that shocked me. And I'm wondering, Gianni, did you ever hear from Frank or from anyone on the film that Sinatra said that?
Oh, I heard that he wanted to, but when he said it even to me, I thought it was in jest. I mean, talk about a stretch. Yeah,
Right.
that's worse than Danny Thomas or Rod Steiger who wanted to play it.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, like that's quite a flip from his original feelings about it.
Yeah, I mean,
Exactly. Yeah.
well, that's Sinatra. Sinatra's schizophrenic. I mean, Pat and I know that. We had to stop writing about him.
Yeah.
Gets a little
Listen,
too crazy.
yeah, he didn't want the move. In the beginning, maybe he felt that Johnny Fontaine was too close. Um, but yeah, so he was in the background, and of course, we don't, you can read what happens with the various
Yeah.
incarnations.
But he did influence Vic DeMoe not to do it, and Vic wouldn't do it.
Yeah.
And Vic was broke. Then he married Judy Sprinkles, who happened to own, you know,
Everything.
A sugar company called Morton's, whatever it is.
Wow.
He always married well, Vic. But
It
I'm
was a
telling you,
hobby.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was saying it was a hobby with him.
Yeah, I mean, but I mean, when I like Pat, I was finding myself just going back to your book and reading it. I had to read it all because even I was 25 years of age on a set. I didn't care what was going on. I didn't think the movie ever come out. I'm up there every day. There's, like you're saying, 750 extras. At least half of them were young-looking, good-looking ladies. So I was just saying, forget about it. I died and went to heaven.
Yeah, I love the various scenes with Gianni or Greg. I love the scene where you get into the car, you have those tickets, and you're like, you're going to Vegas to represent the family there, and you're almost crying. Yes, okay, thank you. And then you get in the car, and he goes, "Hello, Carlo." That's just such a great scene.
No, I mean, like you said, it just evolved into this masterpiece that's ongoing forever, thank God, because I mean, I just keep reaping the harvest in so many different ways with this thing. And
Yeah,
as I was told at a meeting with Viacom that every 2 years we're having a 50th anniversary for Godfather 2, then Godfather 3. So I mean, this ain't going anywhere too soon.
Yeah. So the 50th anniversary is in March of this coming year.
14,
50
yeah.
years.
Yep.
Yeah, March 14th was the premiere, and March 24th was when it was released in theaters. So can you believe 50 years ago, and people are still talking about it, still watching it? It comes on television all the time. I'd love to see it on the big screen again.
Well, that's what they're planning on doing. We hear they're supposed to make an announcement this week because they added like 6 minutes. And it's funny, they could add to a movie that won an Oscar, but they can't take anything out. Because even at the 25th anniversary up in San Francisco, I see Francis, and I said, "Francis, why don't you take that Phantom Punch out?" And he enlightened me, saying, once it wins an Oscar, you can't touch it. You can't take a scene out, but they can add scenes to it. So they're supposedly adding 6 minutes that's never been seen.
Oh, that's great.
So
that's going to be great.
And then they want to go wide again and release it. And I think now they're getting the support because I don't know how many people this weekend probably was the largest push of attendance in theaters. It was over 75 million people went to theaters after
everybody's so happy to be back, right?
Yeah.
After this long hiatus of not being able to go into a theater. I mean, this is the kind of movie you really need to watch on the big screen, I think.
I would love to. I would love to be able to do that.
I mean, I've watched it on my computer many times, but it's not the same on a laptop.
Nowhere near the same.
No.
I did a cruise about 10 years ago for Norwegian cruise lines. And they said, we want to do a Godfather cruise. Will you host it? I said, of course. Because I had all my products. I said, we got to buy all my wine. You got to buy this. We want you to know, no problem. And then 2 nights of the cruise, they're going to show the movie. I said, who's going to see the movie? Not realizing most of the people on the cruise never saw it on the big screen.
Sure.
So at 11 o'clock at night, in the big theater that sat 3,000 people on the ship. These people will come with their pajamas, pillows, snacks. And They watched the movie. They wound up showing it 3 nights. People just wanted to watch it.
That's so great.
Yeah,
That's so great. Yeah, I mean, it's timeless because it was filmed in a classic way. It doesn't seem to age. It doesn't seem dated. You watch it, and it was filmed in the 40s. I mean, it was meant to depict the 40s when it was premiered in the 70s. So it was already, timeless then. So now you watch it and it's the same thing. That's the key to it that you can, I think, is that you watch it and you feel like you're watching it for the first time.
Absolutely.
And it's just great. It's so great again,
But how great you have to feel to have this book. This is like the Bible of the Godfather.
Oh, well, thank you so much. That means a lot coming from you, Gianni.
Well, I mean,
it
the
definitely
facts.
is. Absolutely. I mean, I've read probably 5 books of the making of the Godfather. I mean, they don't compare to the excellent work you did, Mark. I mean, really good. Excellent.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate you saying that.
Well, it's there. It's in the book. It's in the writing. Megan, would you have any? Because she always has the questions that the veterans like Pat and I wouldn't even think about.
I think I covered most of what I wanted to bring up. Mark, it's been a pleasure having you on. I mean, I'm no writer. I wasn't in The Godfather, but I thoroughly enjoyed the book. So thank you so much for
Thank
coming
you
on.
so much. It's always a pleasure talking to you, Gianni and Patrick and Megan. Thank you so much for having me on.
No,
Quite welcome. Come back.
Anytime you want. Our door is open.
I will for sure, and we'll meet in New York, hopefully.
Please come back.
That'll be nice.
We'll hang out, man.
I will.
All right. Thank you so much.
Have a good-
Congratulations.
Thank you for coming on, Mark.
Thank you. Good night.
Congratulations. Good night.
Thank you so
Bye-bye.
much.
Thank you. Bye.
Good show.
That was great.
Oh my God. He's such a brilliant guy and humble.
I know. Yeah, very,
Just
very
like you.
pleasant.
Huh? Like me. I almost didn't make the show tonight. I was so humble.
You can have your stand-in. I'm sure you have one.
I don't know, but I mean, some idiot. There's so many idiots on these streets. It's so dangerous.
What happened?
No, I thank God I got my cane. Some idiots saw my ring and he's made a stupid gesture. I said, well, if you want your face, come and get it, because it'll be on the end of my cane. Now get out of here. And I was screaming, and I happened to be on Second Avenue, and all the cops know me. It's traffic time. I was walking, doing my 4-mile walk. So they all come running over. Johnny. This guy was looking like saying, who the hell is this guy? But anyway, at least it ended just with me yelling.
That's good.
No, but let's make some money. We'll come back and go to the mailbag. We'll be right back. Don't go anywhere. Welcome, everybody. And I'm so happy to be able to tell you tonight that we are expanding not only the show, not only how you can participate and share into so many different facets of my life and the life of this podcast and the world we created. We are going to expand our family. You're going to have an opportunity to actually join our family. And it'll be up to you how far you go in our family. By the purchases of things we're putting out to you, the opportunities that you can take advantage of, like having a one-on-one conversation with me, having me visit your home while you have 10 people for dinner. There's so many things that you're going to be so excited. Just go to HollywoodGodfatherFamily.com and it'll have all the information you want. And believe me, I want you in my family. Don't let me come looking for you. We're back.
All right, let's get into it. So, first we have from Jeff. Jeff says, you have all answered my more thorough questions in the past and even did an entire show about one I asked, the one about Roy DeMeo. I have an odd question for Pat. How the heck did an Italian kid who grew up in New York City, who becomes a cop, ends up living in the middle of nowhere in Pennsylvania? I can understand moving to like Florida, Jersey, North Carolina, not the middle of Pennsylvania where you can't see your neighbor's house. Maybe your real name is actually Patty the Wrench Palumbo from the Gambinos, and you're currently in the witness security program. Just
You
kidding.
got me.
Oh,
But I
That's the
am
reason.
curious
Finally
how
somebody
you
made you.
made it out there.
But that's what I tell everybody when they ask me, why do I live here? I say, I'm in the witness protection program, and that shuts them up. But anyway, no, I wanted to write, and it wasn't getting done. I had an office in Manhattan, was a private investigator. Business was good. Business was too good. I was doing a lot of traveling, a lot of celebrity protection. I said, this just isn't going to get done. So my wife came from this little town in Western PA. We went to visit, and my first reaction was, "Who the hell can live here?" That didn't go over very well, but the thought was there. I figured, I don't know anybody here. There's nothing to do here, and shame on me if I don't finally write. I have no excuse. So in the first 3 years I was here, I wrote 3 books. None of them sold. That's the process in this business. Got to find an agent. I wouldn't have to go through all that, but at least I had the time. I could devote 8 hours a day to sitting in my basement in my underwear, typing away, until eventually, talent wills out, and I got the right agent, and here I am. Why leave? Why ruin a good thing? I like it here. Raised 2 kids here.
How many years you been there?
20, going on 29.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
What the hell do you do there?
I write books, and you ought to be glad I do.
Oh, I am. Oh, believe me, I selfishly love.
Right.
I wouldn't want you anywhere else, selfishly, and I still can't get you on the phone.
in addition to the writing thing, I like to put out a book a year, a bunch of proposals. Healthy living, because there's nothing else to do. Everybody here is so sports minded, and they go to redneck bars, and I'm gonna get thrown out of the neighborhood saying this, but I don't like hanging out in bars. I like hanging out in cocktail lounges. They don't have any here, So
fancy.
I'm in the gym 4 days a week. I'm running. I'm lifting weights. I'm doing all kinds of things. My head is straight. It's clear, and come up with ideas. This is the best thing I ever did. Plus, I think if I would have raised my 2 boys where I used to live, which was Jackson Heights, Queens, the cocaine capital of the world, I would have had a hard time of it. But here, they were 9 years old before they saw their first sidewalk. So one is in medical school, and the other one is a site manager for a company, doing quite well. I don't think it would have happened.
So good.
Yeah, I don't
That's
think it would have happened.
Well, you've done well.
Thank you.
Now let's start writing.
Okay, see ya.
I'm waiting for our next book.
I'm working on the outlines, pal.
Perfect. All right, moving on.
All right. This one is from another person named Jeff. He says, "Thank you all for an amazing podcast. It is extremely entertaining, informative, and helps me forget that I am actually quite miserable while I'm working out at the gym. Something I've always wondered regarding the Godfather movies. Most of the time, the Godfather is called Don Corleone, but occasionally he's referred to as Don Corleone, which puts an emphasis on the E at the end of his name. Is there a reason for this? Does it have something to do with Italian culture, or is it a mistake? Thank you again for hours of entertainment and information. Your life is fascinating, and I'm proud to be an Italian alongside of you."
Well, thank you. Well, all I know about that is that being an Italian and having 2 different cultures as an Italian, being from Naples and being from Sicily, they, like Naples, they pronounce everything. So some say Corleone. So when they, and Francis and them discussed that, especially at the mob meeting, where I think it came up a couple of times, the different pronunciation of how they were addressing him. But I think it was showing the territories that they came from and who they were the bosses of. And that's the explanation.
So different dialects, different
Right,
pronunciations.
exactly. What's your thought, Pat?
The Corleone, without the pronunciation of the E, is the bastardized American version. That's what I think.
I kind of figured too. It's more Americanized.
So that's Sollozzo, and them that used to talk to them, and even McCluskey. That's where you got all that stuff from.
Yeah.
So basically, we're both saying the same thing.
Yeah, I think.
Yeah.
Okay. I hope we answered your question. And we're proud that you're Italian too.
All right, next is from Steven. Steven says, "Hi, Gianni. Did you ever come in contact with a guy named Anthony Raimondi? He claims his father took part in the killings of Joe Gallo and Albert Anastasia, excuse me."
Why would you want people to know he did?
Exactly.
If my
There's no
father
statute of
did that, I
limitations
wouldn't
on
tell
that.
anybody.
Yeah. I mean,
Some
thank you.
people.
You're going to be getting a visit in the morning.
Yeah, hello.
Yeah.
I'm glad you didn't say your last name or your address.
Yeah.
That's so.
did.
I mean, Jesus. Moving on.
What else did you do while we're at it? You know,
Yeah, hello.
Yeah,
put
right.
it on a list on the indictment.
All right, next is from Jamie. Jamie says, "Hello, Gianni, Patrick, and Megan. I have a question for the mailbag for Gianni. I was wondering if Gianni could shed some light on something for me. I know you've talked a good bit about both Frank Costello and Carlo Gambino. My question is, what would you say were personality traits both men shared, both positive and negative? Thanks and keep up the good work."
Their loyalty, both positive and negative.
Mm.
You didn't cross any one of these men, and your word is your bond. And God forbid if you did. And like you're saying, two different images, two different walks of life, everything about them, manner of speaking, dressing, but they were one of a kind when it come down to the end. It's who they are.
And loyalty is an Italian thing. You know, somebody that read my books once asked me, and they said, "How did you pick the theme of your books?" And I'm thinking, what theme? You know, I mean, it's a story. They're good stories, I'd like to think. But I said, "Well, why do you think I picked it? I want to hear what he thinks my theme is." He said, "Well, loyalty runs through all your books," and he's right. He was right. I did it subconsciously, and it's an Italian thing.
Yep. That's the whole thing, man. I've seen
yeah.
as we have seen, but I've seen it in real life.
Yeah.
When they say you're taking on that family, meaning the mob family, and they come before your family, anybody, and I've seen brothers to these guys be disloyal, and they gave the contract to the brother.
Yeah.
To take him out. So,
and I have to do it.
That's craziness.
Yeah.
That goes on beyond loyalty to me, Jesus. Mm-hmm. Moving right along.
All right, next is from Michelle. Michelle says, "Love the podcast. I don't know how I haven't heard of this sooner. I've been listening to it for a couple weeks while I do deliveries, and I'm up to the end of season 4. It's nice hearing all these little tidbits about the movie. I was wondering what they are singing in the wedding when the mother gets up to sing. When the older gentleman gets up with her and starts to sing, his teeth almost fall out, and he seems to be doing obscene hand gestures. It always makes me laugh. The stories are great. Keep it up. Keep it up. Love you all." So what is she singing?
Well, all those Italian folk songs we always sang at weddings and feasts. And that guy is a real guy. He was a friend of my grandfather's, and he used to sing at Lady Montcalmo feast every year. So, and which is another piece of trivia. Nino Morielli and his brothers, the orchestra that played at my wedding, already played at 2 of my real weddings.
You had them on retainer, right?
No, I knew it was. Oh, they never forgive me. I mean, they forgive them that movie. They said, "We'll play for all your other weddings for nothing." I said, "I'm stopping."
What a deal. Such a deal.
No, they got famous, these guys. Yeah. They actually changed the name of their wedding thing. We're the Godfather Wedding Band. Like the wedding singer, they're the Godfather Wedding Band.
That's a good promotion.
And they got a lot of work. But
the name of the song was Mezzaluna.
Mezzaluna, yeah, I know. I mean, all of those.
Hey, let's form a trio.
There you go. Let's not.
Yeah, even a better idea. Yeah.
All right, moving on. Next is from Matthew. Matthew says, "I know that Lucky Luciano was deported to Italy after the war, but I've read where he came back to the U.S. periodically for meetings and perhaps other things. Any truth to this?"
Of course. Hello. Mm-hmm. Before cell phones. Before 9/11, and every ticket had to have your name on it.
Well, it's known that he would show up in Havana every now and then.
Yeah.
But did you hear any stories where he actually came to the States?
I knew he came to New Jersey once, and they brought him in by water, and the house that he was visiting was on the water. And then also he went to see Trafficante in Florida. That's when, well, I don't want to mention too many names, but Santo Trafficante and Roselli is dead now, so that's the only names I can mention. But they brought him in. I mean, he had no problem coming in and out. You know, they didn't. You know, the people knew who was coming.
Yeah, their times were a lot different then. The borders were porous.
Oh my God, yeah, it's crazy.
You know, customs was a joke.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that is all I have for tonight.
Well, I have to say, I think our audience will agree. A great show.
Absolutely.
Yeah, he was very good.
And to have Mark Seal, as our audience will get to know this man, especially just from this book. He's a prolific writer, and Pat, you gave him the best accolades, I think, writer to another writer.
All that information, and you would think that some of the sections of that book no one would be interested in. Who cares about cinematography? Everybody's going to care about it when they read this book. He makes it so captivating, and you could visualize the movie and the scenes he's talking about. You say to yourself, yeah, that's one of the reasons I like this movie, and I never even realized it.
Well, I mean, I thought the compliment that you said that you read it in two days. I mean,
2 days.
That's a big book.
Yeah, 500 pages.
Hello.
488, something like that.
All right. Well,
leave the gun, take the cannoli. Go get it now.
There you go.
Absolutely.
I'll get that title right after I get your name right.
Yeah, my name and my description.
All right.
It's a good thing you weren't playing that part where you would have to say it.
Yeah.
I would have had to cut that every time.
Take the gun, leave the cannoli. No, leave the gun, take the cannoli. No. Leave the body, take the cannoli.
Take the gun.
Something like that.
Forget about it. Leave it all.
Leave it all there. Who needs it?
Oh, man.
All right. Good night, everybody. Thank you all for tuning in. We need the cards and letters and the reviews. Our audiences are building, fortunately, and we all thank you for that. God bless you.
Good night, guys.
If you're feeling sad and lonely, there's a service I could render. I'm the one who loves you only. I could be so warm, so tender. Call me. Don't be afraid, you can call me. Maybe it's late, but just call me. Tell me and I'll be around.
Thank you for tuning in to the Hollywood Godfather podcast. You can contact Gianni Russo, Patrick Picciarelli, or myself, Megan Horan, with your questions and comments through the contact section of our website, HollywoodGodfatherPodcast.com, which is where you can also subscribe to our weekly newsletter. You can also call and leave us a message at 646-776-3038. Remember to follow us on Instagram at Hollywood Godfather and on Facebook, as well as leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. We'd like to know what you like about what we're doing, what you'd like to hear in the future, and anything else you might suggest to improve our podcast. Most importantly, hit the subscribe button. We'll be back next week with stories of the mob and Hollywood, as well as answers to your messages. Good night.
Call me, tell me, and I'll be around. I'll be around. Give me a call. When I was 17, it was a very good year. It was a very good year for small town girls and soft summer nights. We'd hide from the lights on the village green. I did it my